Welcome to Standing Up for Women and Children with Advocates Protecting Children. I'm Maria Keffler.
I'm Erin Brewer.
And today we're here with Jessica Franz, who is a newly seated school board member in Ohio, and she is our second award winner of the Standing Up for Women and Children Award. Jessica reached out to us last week about some things that were going on in her district. And Jessica, we just want to thank you. We want to thank you for what you're doing. Big applause for Jessica.
We are so thankful for your willingness to stand up and speak out about this issue. So many people have been intimidated and are afraid to say anything. And you are an important role model. You are brave, and we just appreciate your efforts.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for inviting me today and for the award. It's very humbling. As a Christian, this is not something that I necessarily wanted to do. This is something that I was called to do, and I answered the call. And I'm sure many other believers that may be on can relate to that. This is foreign territory for me as a homeschooling mother. I do not have kids in the district. I'm kind of in an unusual situation, and this is a decision I didn't take lightly to run. There was a lot of discussion with my husband, a lot of prayer, and my answer that I received was clear: you need to go ahead and run. Make a very long story short, I did get elected to the school board, and this is my first time serving on a school board. So I am excited. I've learned quite a bit already. There's quite a few resources that were thrown my way from day one. So I'm trying to play catch up. I was not expecting right off the bat to have to deal with such a highly controversial issue, not at all, in my district. I was made aware of this issue in December. It came to my attention that this might be coming my way. I was not going to be sworn in until January 10th. And it was my understanding at that time that the superintendent and a former school board president had spoken with an attorney around this issue. I'm not sure at this time whether other school board members were involved in those discussions with that attorney, but I do know that the superintendent and the former school board president were. And it did sound like they were leaning toward making a decision, but it was my understanding that in order to enact something like that across the district, that would need to be a policy resolution that the board would vote upon and enact. So I just never thought that this would be a decision that was just made.
And for those who aren't familiar, can you explain? Again, a lot of people have no idea that this is happening. I think your experience is not unique. I think this is happening across the country, and it's happening in the same way. It's very backhanded, behind closed doors, and so people, especially parents, don't even know what's happening. So can you just clarify for people what this policy is?
Yes. So, well, there is no policy that allows a student identifying as the opposite sex to use the restroom that they identify with. But there is a policy that's existing, and this is what they're kind of tucking this decision under, against no sex discrimination. So, but backing up a little bit. So I was first made aware of this in December. I was sworn in on January 10th. I had a copy of the agenda, all the items that would be addressed for that first meeting. This was not on the agenda.
Yeah, that's really almost
blindsided.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say that's really how I got involved with this issue myself, was in our school district. We became aware via a friend who was just looking around the website for summer school information that there was a policy, transgender students policy, that was being worked on. And after doing a Freedom of Information Act request, we found that the school district and a local interest group, the Arlington Gender Identity Allies, had been working on this behind closed doors for almost a year. And it was really just that we stumbled upon it, that we even gotten involved. And what you said about the non-discrimination clause, that's what we see happening everywhere. It gets the non-discrimination clause, gets the gender identity slipped into it. And then the next thing you know, the administration, the school board is saying, oh, what does that mean to not discriminate? And they slip all these policies in. So again, thank you so much. Tell the rest of your story.
So since then, I've learned that there were other board members that were also not aware that this would be on the agenda for the evening.
Were you the only new school board member, or were there others that were also new?
One other. There was one other new school board member coming on with me that evening. So, and yeah, it was something I didn't expect. And of course, the parents were understandably upset because this is something affecting the entire community, the health and well-being of children, anything that is affecting the health and well-being and safety, privacy concerns, religious values of, I mean, school districts are made of so many differing worldviews. And as a school board, as an administrator, it's so important that we weigh in with the community, with the parents, with the teachers, with the students, when we are looking at enacting a policy that is again, so highly controversial. And there's so many parts to this that need to be addressed. So what?
Sorry, my cat's decided to make a cameo appearance here.
I've got one.
I love to Zoom bombed. Okay.
So
Sorry about that.
I just it seemed very quick, very a quick decision without a community forum and with no real safety procedures in place. So what does this mean now? This we are a K through 12 school. So this does potentially mean that a high school boy could use a little girl's bathroom, and the parents raised some excellent questions. How are you going to protect my daughter? How are you going to protect my son? Safety, privacy, again, dignity. There are students who are male and female that have, at junior high especially, there's so many changes going on. It's a crazy time for most people, and hormones raging, and there's a lot of body self-consciousness going on, and there's even males and females that are uncomfortable changing in front of the same sex, and now we're asking them to potentially be walked in on by someone of the opposite sex. Again, there were so many questions that were raised that the administration did not have a response for. The school board did not have a response. And to me, that's careless, that's reckless, it's inconsiderate. It is not putting students first. It is not putting community first. The teachers were just notified that day of the decision, the day of my school board meeting when I was sworn in. So there was teachers that were concerned about, what does this look like? What does this mean? As far as what safety procedures now do we need to put in place? And there was no answers for the questions as far as I could tell.
I was shocked when I read this. This is the superintendent, Justin Firks, and he says, our goal is to provide the safest environments for students and staff while adhering to the expectations set forth by the federal government. And I'm thinking, as you know, I'm a mom, if this is the safest policy they can come, the safest, way that they can address this issue, to me, they've really abdicated responsibility for, as you said, for girls who are feeling vulnerable and boys who are feeling vulnerable, for religious protections. There are certain religious beliefs that stipulate that you're not allowed to see the opposite sex in a state of undress. This is violating some very basic human rights, and it's a very uncreative response to what's happening. And it seems to me like they've just been pressured by activists rather than really thinking, how do we deal with this? I recommended to my local school board that they come up with, under a disability act, that they accommodate students who have gender dysphoria by allowing them to use, a teacher's bathroom or, a single stall bathroom. That way, that child, their issues are not addressed in school, while at the same time the other children's rights and protections are being honored. And again, for him just to say this is the only thing we can do, I just feel it's really sad to me that we have people like that who are in charge of our children.
Now, there was accommodations made for the student, and that's exactly what had been happening for the student. They were using a staff bathroom, but again, being careful of what details I share here, wanting to protect the privacy, that became an issue, and that wasn't enough.
It wasn't good enough. Yeah.
Well, and that's what we see is this constant push to normalize this and to suggest that this is a child who is actually born in the wrong body and deserves to be treated as the opposite sex, rather than a child suffering from gender dysphoria. And this is, I think, a very dangerous narrative for school boards to accept.
Well, and it's affirming this belief that a student would have, that the way that they were born isn't good enough.
Right.
That they need to make some kind of change to become the person that they need to be, that the way that they were born into the body that they have, saying, yeah, you do need to change something about that. And that's almost the equivalent of, telling a student who is suffering with anorexia, yeah, you do need to lose weight.
Right.
Just because in their head, they may be 300 pounds, but in reality, they might be 98 pounds. So if we're using the same logic here, then you're telling me I would need to affirm that student, because that is their belief, that is their reality, that yes, they are 300 pounds and no, you should go on a diet, or you should.
Can you imagine school boards instituting a policy like that? And yet, as you said, it is equivalent, this idea that we're supposed to affirm the feelings of children whose feelings are based on dysphoria, the sense of, that, to me, that's just such a disservice to children. And Jessica, I'm not sure if you know my story, but I had a trans identity as a child, and thankfully my school did not have this policy, and my teachers didn't affirm me, and they actually got me help with a school psychologist that put me on a path of resolving that gender dysphoria rather than affirming it. To me, I just feel like this is such a huge disservice to children who are struggling with gender dysphoria.
Yeah, and unfortunately, what we see is a lot of the advocacy groups, that's the only ones that the administration, the school board, that the staff that they hear from is the people who are pushing these ideas of children need to create a trans identity for themselves. And what they're omitting, what they're not talking about, is the lifelong consequences of taking those sex-changing drugs, those that can create sterility in someone. So if you change your mind later on, which many people do, and there are many testimonies of people who went down this road, and then a few years later, they said, hey, this isn't me. I understand, that I was going through a hard time. There were other factors that led me to believe that I needed to take these drastic measures and change my sex, and they wanted to go back, but now they're missing body parts. Now they're sterile. Now they're living with the lifelong physical and mental consequences. And what I have an issue with as well is many times these kids are being steered. There's outside influences that are cultivating this. They are encouraging this instead of treating it as a mental illness, something that they need to get help for. It is being affirmed, and it's hurting these children. And I'm not going to be part of anything that is going to be harming our students or teaching them that they are not good enough the way that they are born. They need to change something about themselves. We need to be encouraging them to love their bodies and the body that they have, to love themselves.
Yeah, I just see this as reinforcing self-hatred and the desire to become somebody else. And that's not something schools should be doing. This is grim, and it's unfortunate that this is happening. We're very thankful that you're letting people know. And I'm wondering if you can tell us about efforts to reverse this, so that, we talked a little bit about how the child themselves is going to be harmed by this, but this also hurts the whole community. This hurts all of the children when they start to be given this idea that they could be born in the wrong body, this is danger. This is a dangerous ideology for all the kids. And so do you have any suggestions for how we can support you in pushing back against the school district?
Well, right now there are parents and grandparents, community members, teachers who are not happy with the way that this issue was dealt with the way it was handled. And there are people who have created a petition. They are collecting signatures from community members. They are encouraging people to attend our next board meeting on February 14th to speak to this during the public speaking time, to make their voices heard, and to push for a community forum and to walk back this decision until it's been fully legally vetted. It is my understanding that this decision was made based on the legal interpretation of one attorney. Mm-hmm. Now, the superintendent has since said he's spoken with other attorneys in Miami County, and they have all said the same thing. The problem that I have here is with the transparency. I have not seen that. As a school board member, I have yet to see this legal opinion with the attorney's name on it. And I have a problem with that. I think that that should be available to not only myself as the school board member, but the community. The community should be able to see, okay, if you're saying that this is law and I have to do it, then don't just copy and paste an attorney's response and put it in your letter. Where's the attorney's name on this? Where's the legal analysis? Where's the justification? I do have a problem with that. And don't just tell me you've spoken to other attorneys. I want to see their names. I want to see their opinions. I have a right to know as a school board member, as a parent, as a community member, because this decision is affecting everyone. So
I think that's what we've really been encouraging people is look at the citations, get the names. Yeah, look at the names. Where is this information that you're giving me coming from? Because
question everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other thing is that it's really important that we start enacting legislation to counter this, because that way there's something in place to support these school board administrators. It's really important that we do that, because otherwise this ideology is just going to run through our schools like a wildfire, and it's going to damage so many kids.
And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because this is also interconnected. So we have a representative, we're fortunate enough to have a representative in our district who has tried to introduce legislation in the House, and it's protecting female sports. And it has to do with the idea of we're not going to allow biological males to play in female sports. And well, I'll get off on a rabbit trail, but I was going to mention that Title IX, that started off with protecting females and non-discrimination against women and girls in sports and in the classroom. And it's evolved into something that it was just never meant to be. But coming back to this, so she was advocating for this, and we had some Democrat legislators who just threw an absolute fit. And when I say threw a fit, there is video of them pounding the tables, throwing a fit. So our Republican governor, Governor DeWine, decided to side with the Democrats on this issue, and he let it die. So we not only need to be working to make change at the local level, but it's got to also be pushing at the state level.
Yeah, it's so ironic because, when Title IX was enacted, everybody knew what they were talking about. Nobody had any doubt what a girl or a woman was. That's why Title IX was enacted. And it's so confusing to me now that the very people who, 30, 40 years ago would have been fighting for Title IX because they would want women and girls to have the opportunities that the boys had in sports. They would have been fighting for Title IX they're now actively undermining it. And that is so confusing to me. So I'm really grateful for all of your efforts. It's just so important to have members of the school board who understand these issues the way you do.
Thank you.
And please let us know what we can do to continue to support you and keep us apprised of how it's going.